Welcome to the 1905 podcast with your hosts Joe Kevin and Chris Sheen. Joe and I have been going to Stamford Bridge for over 30 years. This podcast takes you inside our unfiltered voice notes on all things Chelsea, sharing our view from Gate 13 of the Matthew Harding stand. Let's hit the notes. In this episode, you'll hear our live reactions to defeat at Liverpool, only Maresca's second defeat in the league as Chelsea boss, and one that leaves us with more regrets than disappointment in many ways. We'll also preview the away game in Panathinaikos and Chelsea being back at the Bridge against Newcastle on Sunday. Let's start, as promised, with our live reactions to that game at Anfield.
Oh my God, what a game for Reece James to come back on. He hasn't played all fucking season, and now he's starting away at Anfield. Okay, and Gusto's at left back. So Vega didn't get the chance to play left back. Wow. Yeah, interesting. I'm quite shocked, actually. I'm more than shocked. I'm blown away. He must be fitter than we think. Or he's going to be pulling a fucking coach by the end of the first half an hour. He's going to be blowing out his arse. Interested, mate. Yeah, I don't know what you think about that. But I'm flabbergasted, actually.
Oh, wow. I didn't expect that at all. That is huge news, isn't it? What a game to be thrown into. I mean, I guess the big decision there might have been Salah, and whether he thought Vega against Salah was a little bit risky. And you kind of think, you imagine it would be Gusto on the left, and obviously Salah cuts in on that left foot, so you can see it from that perspective. But wow, yeah, huge game for him. I just really hope he can get through it, because it would just be heartbreaking, wouldn't it, to see him come off the pitch injured again. So yeah, fingers crossed. I am, as you know, Joe, but for everyone else, I'm on the way to the airport, travelling to Heathrow Airport in a taxi at the moment, so I'll be watching the game from the airport. I've actually left extra early to make sure I can watch the game, so I'm well ahead of my flight, but I was like, I can't miss the game, it's such a big one. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm genuinely excited. It feels nice being in one of these big games and actually looking forward to it, thinking we've got a chance. Obviously, as I said in my prediction, not confident for the game, but I do think we'll give them a game, and yeah, it'd be nice to see us on the front foot and have a real go. Come on, Chelsea.
So we've got about 5 minutes to go before half-time here. I think Chelsea have done reasonably well. We look a little bit shaky on the Liverpool transition, the long ball over the top. I don't think Gusto's looked overly happy on that left-hand side that he usually does on the right-hand side. Obviously, he's got the task of marking Mo Salah, which is always no mean feat. I think Salah should have been booked for a complete dive. The referee knew he dived and obviously didn't give him the booking, which is half of the course when you go to Anfield, of course. Arnie Slot's moaning about every single decision, and every single decision so far that he's moaned about he's got wrong, so he should probably sit down and keep his mouth shut. Talking of keeping the mouth shut, maybe Jackson should keep his mouth shut. He's got himself a needless yellow card for trying to disrespect and interfere with the penalty, and it's just a complete waste of time, because you're not going to put Mo Salah off. He's got 200 and something goals at Anfield. It's just ridiculous. Just keep your mouth shut and don't get booked. And if you make a rash tackle now, you're on for another yellow card and you're off. So that's pointless. Sanchez, the good and bad from Sanchez. The pass back, which he passed to, I think it was Gravenberch or Gakpo, and he got a 1-2 and picked it up, which is, again, just madness. Just get rid of it. And then a few moments later, as he puts that ball over the top for Sancho to run to, which was a brilliant ball, but we didn't make anything of it. I think overall Chelsea have done pretty well. I think Lavia and Caicedo in the midfield have looked good. Reece James on his return has looked fine. You can tell he's trying to get himself into the game. He doesn't want to kill himself, but luckily this left-hand side for Liverpool isn't as dangerous as the right-hand side. But I think overall we're doing okay. It's one of those games that we've got to stay in it. You get the Liverpool, you'll never walk alone for the first 2 minutes, and you get a bit of blood and gusto for the first 5, and then the crowd were completely silent. They weren't cheering, they weren't singing, there was nothing. And obviously we give them a cheap penalty. Again, it's all coming down our left-hand side, which is a bit of a shame. Colwell and Gusto don't quite seem to be on the same page. And Sancho as well. There was just some silly things where there was a throw-in and Sancho just didn't even go with the runner. It's quite basic defending. Yeah, I think we've got to try and keep a lid on things. Liverpool don't look fantastic. They're trying to hit us on the counter-attack. There's a few longish balls and crossfield balls from the right to the left, which are coming from Salah and Trent on that right-hand side. Overall, I think we've looked in the game. Noni's had a chance. Palmer's had a chance. Reece James has had a couple of good crosses, which have not found their mark, but very dangerous crosses, and we've got some corners out of it. But like I say, 1-0 at this stage is fine. Just don't go 2 and 3-0 behind and the game's over. So we've just got to keep a lid on things and don't boil over. Don't keep getting these silly yellow cards and then you can't make a tackle for the rest of the game. So yeah, I think overall, at the moment, just coming up to half time now, we're looking okay. Obviously, don't want to be losing, no one does, but kicking towards our supporters in the second half. Hopefully we'll have a difference. But I can see us scoring today, and hopefully it's 2 at this stage.
Okay, half time, that was a massive moment in the game, wasn't it? And I think it was the right call. The longer he was looking at the screen, the more worried you were that he was going to then give the penalty. I think overall I feel like we're a little bit tentative in the penalty, around the penalty area. I feel like we could be, I don't know, a little bit more confident. It's almost like the final ball, final pass and stuff isn't quite where it needs to be. And yeah, it does feel like a game for Nkunku, where, he's a bit more clever than Jackson, isn't he? And actually the game isn't as stretched as maybe you think would really suit Jackson. It feels it's a little bit more like you need something a little bit clever in and around the box, where I think Nkunku gives you that. And then out wide, you've got loads of options, to be fair, as we always say. I mean, we're blessed, aren't we, with people like João Felix or Pedro Neto. So, yeah, I really hope that we use the fact that we've ridden that pressure at the end of the half and can come in, and I think he's got to settle him down a little bit. But, yeah, actually go out in second half. And as you said, there are goals in hit this. I think if we get the next goal, I think we could actually win the game. It feels massive, doesn't it? I think if we concede next, game over, and I don't think we get back, and it actually could get a little bit ugly. If we score the next goal, it changes everything, and I think you could end up winning this game.
Caicedo for Jackson, that's a lovely ball. He's onside, Nicholas Jackson. Goal, 1-1. What a start to the second half.
Fantastic. I'm not even waiting for the VAR. That's 1-1. Get in, Jackson. Get that Jackson off, mate. He's no good. Sorry, I had to say that. That really made me laugh. Nkunku time now.
Oh, it's a great ball in. It should be a goal. It is a goal. Chelsea were level for 3.5 minutes. Curtis Jones from Salah's assist again.
Oh, for God's sake, we couldn't enjoy that for very long, could we? I mean, Sanchez, I know he's a little bit of a fall guy from this podcast, but surely he could be a bit bigger and stronger there. I mean, it was right in his 6-yard box. He hasn't come for it. That is really disappointing. It felt like go and build on that goal. But great ball by Caicedo, by the way. But that feels like a long time ago already.
Yeah, I don't want to go too hard on Sanchez, but what I would say is this. We've got a WhatsApp group that says there's a goalkeeper in there that basically we mock him for making himself smaller for penalties. And that was the epitome of making himself smaller. Like, he seemed to go like sideways as Curtis Jones, not that ball in. It's like, just if that's like Schmeichel or Czech, their arms are outstretched and they probably just saved that. It wasn't like it was a really difficult shot to save. Although I'm not a goalkeeper, so the goalkeepers union will probably disagree with me. But I just feel as though he could have done a lot better there. But yeah, all changes now. Lots of substitutions. We've looked pretty good since the goal, and hopefully we can equalise and then not concede within a minute of our goal going in again. I think Cole Palmer's going to get at least a chance. He's got to. I think he's going to have at least a chance, but we've got to keep it quiet the other end, otherwise it's going to be curtains.
That sounds weird, but I almost feel like we're showing them too much respect. 20 minutes left, and I feel like they're there for the taking. I don't think they're, obviously they're a good side and they're very dangerous on the counter, we know that, but I don't know, I feel like we're a little bit tentative going forward, and actually I think this Liverpool team are there for the taking if we can have be a bit more decisive around the box. Again, I'm not going to say it again, but I'd be looking to get Nkunku on the pitch. I mean, it's 20 minutes to go, and again, you just don't want to put him on for like 5 or 10 minutes like he's been getting in some of these games. Like, this is made for him to come up with a little bit of something special. And yeah, I feel like, the game is there. The game is there for us. Got a lot of the ball. I don't know about you. It's a really weird one. I don't even know how to feel about that. So first feeling is final whistle's just blown, is gutted. And I just feel like, I think as I said during the game, it's like they were there for the taking. I feel like we showed them a little bit too much respect. It's almost like, I don't know, we're not quite there yet. And I feel like we've seen it with Chelsea teams in the past where you may be a year or two off being a title contender. I mean, obviously we're nowhere near that at the moment, but probably only 2 or 3 players away from, if the players grow as they can, to be in that sort of team that goes to Anfield and goes and wins. And he just felt it today. I just felt like there wasn't quite the belief that actually we could go toe-to-toe with them and go and win the game. And again, around the final third, we've had some, 2 chances at the end, the Vega header, and Kunku's unlucky. It's a great ball by Neto. Little moments that you get to, or you're really happy, aren't you? It's such a small margin. And I just feel like that's one of those games you look back and go, yeah, we could have actually got a result from that game. It would have been a really big result for us. Whereas now you're like, oh yeah, Chelsea been beaten by a good team. I don't feel too down about it. I think that's a game where we were far better than we were last year. Obviously, it was embarrassing last season. I don't know. I think they were there for the taking. In terms of individual performances, Neto was really good, wasn't he, when he came on at half time? I think I'd said it to you, maybe not on the pod, but I thought he would be one I'd be looking at in a game like this because there's going to be more space in behind. And I think in hindsight he should have started. I liked a bit of Lavia actually. I thought it was a brave decision to play him over Enzo. We talked about it before. I thought he looked decent when he played. I think him and Reece James, it was an obvious thing to kind of bring them off. Yeah, if we are, let's have a little look ahead. If you are talking about next season and thinking about, right, these players are getting, growing together, what are you looking to bring in to make yourselves, potentially title contenders? That's got to be what they'll be looking at. You've got Esteval, William, we know will come in, and the player is the goalkeeper, isn't it? Whether you blame him for the second goal, I thought he could have done a bit better personally, but just generally, he's a bit of a car crash, Sanchez. We've been saying it for a long time, and you don't feel confident with him. And every team who wins the Premier League, pretty much without fail, look at the last 30 years, their goalkeeper is good. It's a solid goalkeeper, it's dependable, whatever you want to call it. And with Sanchez, you just don't feel it. You feel like there's, to be fair, his handling was good. He can come across this. He'll make a great save at times, but you don't feel safe. You don't feel secure with him in goal. And I think that's a big area of concern. I thought Caicedo was excellent. I thought he's really growing into basically the spine of the team's growing, isn't it? Like, I thought Colwell was good. I thought Caicedo was excellent. That little spine is good. I mean, Jackson wasn't his best game, but brilliant finish, great run. He kept making that run, and that's why he's starting, because he's always dangerous. And to be fair, it just wasn't Cole Palmer's day, was it? It's one of those. I think he's so important to us that he wasn't bad, but if Cole Palmer's on form, then you win. Those little moments of magic come off, and then you win the game today. Like, he's that important to us. So yeah, I'm disappointed, just mainly because I feel like that was a game where I think we could have got something, and yeah, frustrating. But I am going to go and get my flight to Munich and reflect again tomorrow on the game. But I think it probably sort of validates what we've been saying all season, which is like we're in the race for top 4. We're a little bit behind the top 3, and we're, I think, the 4th best team in the league. And hopefully at the end of the season, I would take that now, and I think that might be what plays out. We're just not quite there yet. We've seen very good Chelsea teams, we're not quite that yet. And yeah, hopefully that'll be what develops.
I had to leave this voice note slightly longer than I would normally, because I just feel as though I'm in a bit of a haze, really. Did we play well at times? Did we leave ourselves wide open at times? Does a top goalkeeper make a big difference in your team? I think we said it at the start of the season. Yes, it does. Nothing against Sanchez. The guy is doing as best as he can. I think I'm not going to change my tune on him and say he's suddenly, the second coming of the Premier League. He's not. But I actually do like him. I think he's a decent guy. I think he's probably very, gets on with the team, and he's trying his best, but he's just not good enough. And this is the facts are he's not, and he's not the reason for the loss today. He's not the sole reason for the loss. So I don't want to come on here and sort of preach that. And probably people might be thinking, oh, what am I going to go in for? He makes too many little mistakes. There was a period in the second half we had quite a good ball possession. We passed it back to him, and he literally just scuffed it to the middle of the field. I mean, just a complete scuff straight to the Liverpool player. And you're thinking now, right, we've gone from being in possession with all our players back and around us to suddenly a scuff down the middle of the field, which is probably aimed at Caicedo, completely missed its target by miles, not even close. And then, these teams, they receive that ball. I think it comes to Gravenberch. He then pushes forward. He passes it out to Salah. Salah he's now going at Vega. And we've gone from having ball possession to not having ball possession. And the game's changed massively on that. They then go and get a corner. Okay, the corner didn't come to anything, but if that goes to 3-1, these are the small details in these big games you've got to try and eradicate. And I know he's trying. I know that he's clearly not hoping this happens. He's not trying to, make a mistake. But this is where these big teams, your Chelseas, your Liverpools, your Arsenals, they just have that position sewn up. It took Arsenal a little while to find one, but we've got to go and get the best available goalkeeper. It's just facts. We can't keep sitting on mediocre goalies. I mean, there's an argument to say, is Kelleher as good a replacement as Sanchez? If he played for Chelsea today, would we have known any difference? My argument is probably not. Again, there's my Sanchez knock out of the way. Not meant to, but I just think it's something that needs mentioning. As a team, did we play well? Like I said, yes, I think we did. We had a big lull spell with about 20 minutes to go. We didn't do anything. We didn't really get hold of the game. There was little glimpses. Neto's run, which is fantastic. He coming from the left-hand side all the way across to the right-hand side, and he pokes that ball through to Palmer. He maybe could slide it through to Noni, but he's in a better position, more central to goal. I'm not going to criticise Palmer for that. It's his prerogative. He's the man in form. Why not take the shot on? I think if that the other way around, if Noni had done that, I might have been a bit more critical. So I suppose so from my point of view, the pass was definitely an option, and he could have used that. Noni certainly let him know about it. And weirdly, when Neto went to the right, he was completely non-existent. He went out the game totally. It was like, why change Neto? He was the one that was really causing them problems. He was brilliant in the second half. And Kunku went to the left, and I didn't really see him. He was that ball he beats Konate to it, and he gets taken out for a yellow card. But other than that, he never really got in the game. And then you've got Jackson, who likes playing off the left. Why not put him off the left and then put Nkunku through the middle? Give them something different to think about. They've been marking Jackson all day long. And Nkunku come in order, give them a totally different proposition. But I just feel as though we didn't have the kahunas. You've got to go and punch these guys in the face. You've got to give them a bloody nose. I feel as though we're just too tame. We're too timid. And a 2-1 loss at Anfield, some people will go, what's wrong with that? Well, it's not the worst result in the world. We got beat 4-1 there last year, so it's better than that. But it still gets you fuck all, does it? It gives you no points. Again, I'm not suggesting you're going to go to every away ground and beat everyone. You're not. You're just not. But you have to really press your good play. When you're on form and you have that kind of pressure, the good pressure in their half, you've got to make it count. Too many times we gave the ball away on rotation in good areas. And I just think that this is something we've got to get better at in these bigger games, because we've got Newcastle next week, like we said, and we've got Arsenal and Man United coming up, and I know Newcastle and Man United are struggling a little bit, but they will cause us problems. There's no point lying. You're not going to come on here and say that they're no good and they won't give us a game. They will. And both teams are capable of beating us, even though I don't think they're as good as us. I don't. But they can still beat you on the day. So we can't take them lightly. My point today would have felt good. It would have felt, oh, yes, that was a good one. Going into next week's game against Newcastle gives you a bit more confidence. And if that suddenly had become a draw, it doesn't feel too bad. But if it was to lose this and then lose the next one, all of a sudden you're in that goddamn spiral. And I don't think Maresca wants to get a reputation for losing to all the big teams. We've lost to City, we've lost to Liverpool. Again, neither of those games are easy. But we can't keep making excuses. That's my only point. I'm not saying that Maresca should be winning all these games. He's got the best squad in the league. He's got a very good squad. I think we're definitely light at the back in the central area, although big props to Badiashile. I think he deserves a lot of credit. He was very, very good when he came on today. Vega was fine, didn't do anything wrong. Those two on the left-hand side actually coped very well with Salah and Nunez. But I do think it's an area we need to look at. Goalkeeper and centre-back, I think, is definitely an area we need to look at. I'm not going to go through all the players. There's no point. Everyone, who's watched the game will have seen it. But just my view on it is that in these big matches, I've been a massive advocate for this. Chris will testify to this. We have got to start beating or definitely not losing these big matches, because this is where you win and lose top four, top threes, or win leagues. That's where you cut it. And if you keep losing to all the teams around you, you're going to just drop down the league like a stone. So no more from me. Disappointed to lose. Think we did okay, but okay is not quite good enough for me at the moment. I want to see a bit more. But there we go. We go on to our European game on Thursday night, and then followed by Newcastle at the weekend. So onwards and upwards.
So that's what Joe and I thought of the game, and thinking about it the next day, I woke up this morning actually kind of still feeling just a bit disappointed, really. Not angry at the performance. I think most people, and most of the writing about the performance kind of shows really that Chelsea played well. And when you look at the stats in the game, in any other given game, Chelsea could have got something from the game. And it was small margins, wasn't it, that went against us. We talked about it, in terms of the final third, making that final pass and getting that right, those missed chances at the end. But when you look at a couple of the referee calls as well in the morning after the game, how that Sancho one wasn't properly looked at when Trent stepped on his foot, I just don't know. Surely that's the kind of thing VAR is there for. The handball call for their penalty on Jones, I think you can see them either way, can't you? He's very close to it, but again, wasn't even a talking point at the time of the game, which again feels, what VAR is there for. Disappointed, but we have to move forward, and there were definitely lots of positives from the game. And with that in mind, we wanted to ask a football analyst and fantastic writer, Fard Ahmed, to give us his thoughts on the game from a tactical point of view. We'll link to Fard in the show notes. He's a brilliant writer, and as I said, and he's got a fantastic Twitter profile. So if you are on Twitter, he's well worth a follow. So yeah, over to you, Fard.
Hey Chris, hello everyone. Yeah, the loss is tough and frustrating to take in. A game where we played quite well. I thought we really controlled the game, which in my opinion was quite a surprise. I was surprised by the lineups initially as well, with James and Lavia starting despite being out for a lengthy period. Yeah, we exerted a lot of control from the get-go, which I really did not expect. And we exerted control specifically in possession, while Liverpool tried to exert control out of possession. And I did not expect this, because I thought since the game was at Anfield, Slot would instruct his team as usual to press high, press intensely, and force Chelsea to give up possession. But that wasn't the case at all. Chelsea really dominated most parts of the game with the ball and showed real maturity, I thought. Really picked their moments on when to attack and how to attack. Recycled possession quite well. And just generally, I thought it was just a mature performance from such a young side, in possession and out of possession. And the latter is something I'd want to discuss as well, because coming into the game, my biggest concern was how we would perform without the ball. Because Liverpool are really good at cutting through opposition high presses. And so I was confused, or I was pondering about whether Maresca will adopt a hybrid press, where we have a -1 in the high press, or if we go man-to-man, which also provides its own risks. But Maresca went for the latter, and it worked out quite well. The players pressed quite well, in my opinion, actually really well. Forced a few turnovers and just mostly forced Liverpool long. And we did really well to retain possession in most parts when they did play long as well, barring a few moments here and there. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a good performance. I thought tactically it was the best display we've seen, best tactical understanding from the players, and Maresca just keeps making these tactical tweaks, which are just so interesting, and it works out more often than not so far, at least. And yeah, there's just so many positives to take away. And although I'm frustrated with the result, of course, because I thought we at least deserved a point, it was a game of fine margin, so it was going to be. This result was a possibility. Since it's a game of fine margins, it's either going to be a narrow win, a narrow loss, or a draw. It's not going to swing to either side. And you can see that on the pitch as well. There weren't a huge number of chances. There were only a few chances. And, you could also say decisions sort of swayed the result as well, because you could argue the Trent foul on Sancho was a penalty as well. So let's say if Chelsea had that, there would be 2-2, and there would be, I suppose, more positivity around the result as well.
Hey, it's Chris here with a really quick message. Check us out on Instagram at 1905podcast. You'll find video clips, photos, and much more about everything we discuss on the show. Plus, it's a great way to get in touch to tell us your thoughts, share your feedback, or just say hi. Follow us on Instagram at 1905podcast. And now, back to the show.
Our trip to Greece on Thursday night should be a fairly routine game. I think Panathinaikos are one of the biggest names in the competition, along with Chelsea. But I mean, looking at their recent results, they're not exactly putting up trees in the Greek league. So I think, like anybody, they're always going to pose a threat. Tete seems to be their top goal scorer and performing pretty well for them. But I think overall, Chelsea will have too much for them. We in this competition really shouldn't be losing to anybody. I know football's a game of two teams and anyone can beat you on any given day. The famous quote, any given Sunday in the NFL, is any team can beat you, and it doesn't matter how good or bad they're playing. But I feel as though Chelsea have this solid and very dependable B team. We keep calling it the B team, but this big squad of players that are looking to perform and play well. I think if Buddy Shield comes in like he did against Liverpool in the second half, I think we've got, that was really encouraging to see. I think we're going to see Tosin again in the middle of the field with him. And obviously our fullbacks, probably Vega. So I think the back four will be pretty typical, and obviously Jorgensen will be in goal. There'll be changes to the midfield. Obviously, we're going to see the likes of Felix come in. We'll see probably Nkunku come in for this game, along with a few of the other players that have been on the peripheries at the moment. But will we see Dewsbury Hall? Maybe. I don't think we're going to see Cassidy for this game. I'd be surprised if we did. I think this is one of our harder teams, and it's away from home, so we might see a more robust midfield player go in there. Obviously, the likes of, I think, Lavia, Fofana and Palmer are obviously not even in the squad phase for this round of games, so we won't see any of them. The manager will have a choice to make on a few things, and I think he'll definitely want to give his bigger players, his more regular players in the league, a rest. So you're going to see, obviously, a change to the squad, the change to the starting 11. So I'm fully expecting Chelsea to come out to Greece and actually bit of warm weather, enjoy their couple of days out there, and really enjoy this. I'm expecting a fairly comprehensive result. I'm not saying we're going to win 4-0, but I think we could easily go there and win 2 or 3-0 and it'd be quite comfortable. But we've got to defend properly. And if we defend corners and set pieces like we did against Ghent, then we will be in trouble. So we must take care of the details, the small details when, Sainsbury's said we clear a corner and, half the back four is jogging out and half the back four is running out. That can't happen. We've all got to be on the same page. Yeah, I think this is a good game for Chelsea. Yeah, we've had the draw against Nottingham Forest. We've now had the Admiral defeat against Liverpool, but we still didn't get any points for it. So I think this is a game we could do with getting back with a win and then going on to Newcastle to win on Sunday at 2. So, yeah, I'm hoping Chelsea get a good result here and we can all be pretty happy for the Newcastle game.
Yeah, so Newcastle on Sunday, and I mean, the first thing to say is it's quite an important game, I think. We've got, as we said before, a really tough run of games. We knew Liverpool would be very hard. We've obviously got Arsenal and Man United coming up, and out of those 4, Newcastle was definitely the game that you'd be looking at thinking Chelsea have got to be looking to get 3 points. It's 2 without a win, obviously with a draw against Forest and defeat at Liverpool. So I think it's an important game for us to try and get back on track and kind of back in the, strong position for top 4. I look back at the games against Newcastle last season, and actually both of them felt quite important in different ways in terms of but do you know what, all 3 games told interesting stories, I think, of kind of our season. The first one was the awful away performance where we got battered 4-1. Reece James got sent off, and to be honest, it could have been worse on the day, and kind of summed up that period that we were having under Pochettino, where week to week you'd win one, lose one. We looked really bad on the road, particularly, and kind of summed up that period. Then you had the big win in the League Cup on penalties, where it was one of those games we were, again, pretty poor on the day. Newcastle weren't great either. They were 1-0 up, and then Mudryk scored very, very late. I think it was like 93rd minute, wasn't it? And then Chelsea obviously won on penalties. And again, that felt a big moment for our season. Obviously, we didn't go on to win the League Cup, unfortunately, but felt like it gave us a little bit of... That cup run was quite important, actually, to us last season. It gave us something to cheer, really, when we were kind of battling around mid-table at that time. And then the win in the league, which was kind of the start of that period towards the end of the season, when we obviously went on a really good run from February onwards, and beating Newcastle at home was one of those games in that run where you felt like you were starting to see the Chelsea that actually we've sort of seen a bit more of this season, with Palmer pulling the strings, being brilliant, and generally Chelsea looking really good going forward. So it's a big game on Sunday, and as always, we preview it with a guest, and this one was not hard for me to find, actually, because I used to work up in the northeast, so I have a lot of Newcastle supporting friends, and it had to be Phil Doherty who I asked. Phil's a huge Newcastle fan, season ticket holder for many, many, many years, has seen them through all the highs and lows of the last 20, 30 years, and I wanted to get Phil's perspective on the game, how Newcastle look going into it, and whether he'd take a draw on Sunday or whether he thinks Newcastle can get all 3. So over to you, Phil, and then we'll hear from Joe for his preview of the game.
Hey, Sheeny. Hope you're well. Thanks for having us on the 1905 podcast to give my thoughts on Sunday's big clash down at Stamford Bridge. I just want to start by saying, whilst obviously a Newcastle fan, I've been keeping an eye on the channel, and it's great to see it growing and doing so well. So yeah, keep up the good work, guys. But back to Sunday, you've asked the question, how are we looking going into the game? I can only answer that truthfully and say, based on this season's existing performances, I'm far from confident. We've never really done well down at Stamford Bridge. The only times I can remember us winning there in recent years are when Papi Stemma scored that physics-defying goal, and the time before that, I'm certain Niall Ranger scored and Sean Ramiobi got 2 in the League Cup. So yeah, make of that what you will. As for what team we put out, I don't think much will change from the team against Brighton on Saturday. Whilst we didn't hit the back of the net, it was obviously great to see Isak back on the pitch after a short spell on the sidelines. It's clear that we've missed that sort of threat in front of goal, so hopefully he can get back to his ruthless and winning ways and cause you a little bit of trouble in front of goal. We're obviously still missing Trippier and Botman. He's obviously a huge miss to the side, but he is quite a while away from returning, so yeah, nothing really more we can say on that one. Next question, how can we hear Chelsea, and who should we keep an eye on? Again, I think Isak can make the difference in this sort of fixture, but I've also been really impressed with Tonali. I think he's got something special in the lock, and I think this is a sort of game where he could shine. Obviously, you'll be aware he's been out for quite a while. Obviously, with that, that betting and gambling fiasco, he took quite a lot of criticism from press, from fans. So yeah, it's really good to see him hitting the ground running. I do think he's got quite a lot in the locker. I do think he offers. I think he's quite clinical. He's headstrong. Yeah, you can clearly see he's a really talented footballer. So yeah, I think he could be a big difference in a game like this. There's also the likes of Joe Willock and Harvey Barnes. Big fan of both. Whilst both can make an impact off the bench, they're both exciting, quick, direct players. So yeah, definitely wouldn't ignore those two neither. Then there's both Joe Linton and Dan Burn. They're both one booking away from an automatic 1-match suspension. So it'll be interesting to see how Joe Linton handles that added pressure, because I do expect there to be quite a lot of battles in the middle of the park on Sunday. We've got another sold out away end, so our fans will definitely be up for it too. So yeah, he just needs to keep his head on that one. Finally, would I take a point, or should we be going back to Newcastle with all 3 points? I'd absolutely take a point now. As I said earlier, we've been pretty poor this season. I think we've only really performed against Man City, and again, the rest we just haven't, come out the blocks. We're still picked up points, which is obviously great, but I do worry just a little bit lost at present. Of course, I'd take all 3 points with a 93rd minute winner from Harvey Barnes off the bench, but I just can't see us. Yeah, I just can't see us winning down there, unfortunately. Obviously, we'll play each other again midweek in the Cup. Luckily, that one is at St James's Park, where we've had a little bit more luck over the past few seasons against you lot, as you well know, Sheeny. But I do think Sunday will set the precedent for that game too. It certainly sends out a message for either team. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one pans out. But yeah, back to Sunday. As always, I'm looking forward to the game. You know me, always going with a level head, but at the same time, I've got some delusional hope. So I'm praying I'll be sending you a text on Sunday night gloating of a cheeky win down at Stamford Bridge. Again, thanks for having us on. And yeah, let's hope for a cracking game on Sunday. All the best, lads.
Newcastle United, the Geordie boys, the Magpies. This has been a very good game for us over the years. Newcastle at home always feels as though we're going to get the upper hand, and so it's proven on many, many occasions. I'm an admirer of Eddie Howe, although I don't think he's a fantastic top-end manager. I think he's a guy that can do a very good job with a good group of players, an honest group of players, and I think Newcastle are that. Where they excel, obviously, is their forward players. I think that Joe Linton, I think Anthony Gordon and Isak. I actually think Murphy's a very good player too, actually, and he's caused us some problems in the cup game last season. But for me, I think that's where it stops. I'm not a huge fan of Pope in goal, and I think their back four is mediocre. I think people got a little bit out of their pram when we sold Livramento to them. He's sort of looked okay. He's a fine player, but I think the money we got for him, 25, 30 million, was good money. And looking at the players we have now, would he have played? Probably not. I don't think it was a good thing to get rid of him, and I'm not an advocate for selling our youth players, but I do think that looking back, it seems like good business. I think I was disappointed that we sold Hall to Newcastle because, again, he was somebody that I really, really enjoyed. And I think we could have used him, but Newcastle don't seem to be using him in the way that we all thought they would. And he sort of struggled for minutes for them too. I think that Dan Burn is someone that we should target. He's an aggressive, very, very physical, dirty player. I feel as though that any of our wingers, and you literally pull one out of a hat, Sancho, Neto, the other side, Medueke, if they swap during the game, I think we should constantly keep going at him. He's a guy that kind of serves a purpose in the Premier League. He'll do you a job for probably 60% of the games that you come up against, but he cannot run. And Chelsea should really look at that. And the pace that we have on the wings, we should be flying at him all day long. He will clatter someone at some point as well. We could do a running at him and getting him on the yellow card as early as possible because he will not be able to touch anybody for the remainder of the game. So that's something I would look to target. I personally think that Nick Pope is quite indecisive as well in goal. I don't think he's the best goalkeeper that comes across his. Just through the eye test, looking at him in the last few games, I've watched a bit of Newcastle, and I think he's a little bit, indecisive. He doesn't tend to pick up the ball very well from crosses, and he punches a lot, and his punches aren't particularly great either. So again, another area I'd be looking if Reece James is fit, and it was great to see him play against Liverpool last week. If he's fit, and he can kind of get some of his fantastic crosses in, because he'd put 2 or 3 in against Liverpool that were so good, and it was just begging to be headed in, but no one was there to quite get on the end of it. So that's an area I'd look to cross quite early and from kind of deep positions where Reece is. I'd like to see a lot more of Neto. I think he deserves a chance to start. I think he's someone I think he's earned it. I think he's the games that he's played in Europe and the games he's played in the Cups and the bits and pieces where he's had in the league, I think he's been really, really good. So I'd like to see lots of Neto this week. That would be nice. Maybe change it up. Maybe give Sancho a rest because, he's done really, really well for us. But I'm not saying drop Sancho at all for for loads of games, but I think it would be good to see Neto and see what he can do now he's had a bit more of a run in the team. I think we're going to see Cucurella and Fofana come back in. That's a fairly easy no-brainer for the manager, more than likely. I'd be tempted to play Tosin again just because of the likes of Dan Burn and Isak. Their height is dangerous, so it's maybe an area we should kind of think about. He's got a decision at right back. Will Gusto come in and play and Reece James come on? Or will he give Gusto a rest and play Reece like for the first 50 minutes like he did against Liverpool and then bring him off for Gusto? I'm not too sure, but again, that's a decision the manager's got to make. But either way round there, I think I'm pretty happy. Overall, I think Chelsea should be too good for Newcastle. Their results haven't been fantastic. They're a little bit up and down, mainly down, if I'm honest. And I predict Chelsea to kind of, have positive results most of the time. I do believe this is a good Chelsea team. I think that we should be able to get a Newcastle quite easily, particularly at home. Let's just hope they don't frustrate us like Nottingham Forest did a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, I think this is a good game to get back on the right track for Chelsea. And I think Palmer and Noni have good games here. And I think that maybe we see Nkunku coming for a game or two from the start. He'll play against Panathinaikos in the week, I'm sure. But I think that maybe it's time just to see what Nkunku's got from the start. Jackson's done very well as he scored against Liverpool, and that was great. But maybe we might just see Nkunku sneak in for this game.
We finish the podcast, as always, previewing the upcoming game by looking back at our best and worst memories of that fixture. And it's Joe this week doing Newcastle at home, which has been a pretty happy hunting ground for us, as Joe will tell you. But yeah, Joe, over to you for your best and worst at home to Newcastle.
And so we come to my best and worst for Newcastle at home. Well, if I'm honest, Newcastle at home is a very good game for us. We don't tend to lose very many. So actually finding one where they've beaten us at home wasn't as easy as it sounded. The one I'm going to choose, and it always doesn't have to be a loss, I know, but I think usually they do feel pretty crap when you lose. So it's 2012. We are on the cusp of winning the FA Cup and the Champions League. But of course, we didn't know that at the time. Chelsea had been kind of struggling in the league a little bit. We were sort of duking it out with Newcastle and maybe Spurs, if my memory serves me right, around that 4th, 5th, 6th position. And, we were always kind of there or thereabouts, but manager changes and things kind of brought about a good upturn in the cup form, but the league form stayed fairly similar, a bit up and down. So when you can see goals in a game, obviously that's always exciting. You prefer it with your own team, but Papa Cisse on this day scored 2 of the best goals you'll ever see. I mean, they were wonderful strikes. Bolts from the blue, incredible goals. And obviously we didn't realise that the cup competitions were going to be, profitable for us. The FA Cup against Liverpool was always going to be difficult. And yes, we played them in a cup final and we won. Those were the days. And obviously the final against Bayern Munich was to come after that. And obviously we then went on to win the Champions League for the first time, which was wonderful. But we played Newcastle right at the end of the season. And this game kind of cemented our position for kind of 6th place. So we knew that failing to win the Champions League was going to see us play in the Europa League. And at the time, Chelsea in the Europa League just didn't seem like it should go hand in hand. We were a far better team than that. But the season just didn't play out as well as it could have done in the league. The reason I'm choosing that game was because I just feel as though, like I said, when you can go to a game of football and be entertained, even when you lose, and go, do you know what? We were beaten by 2 unbelievable goals, which you could have put 3 Peter Cechs in, and he still wouldn't have saved them. That's how unbelievable they were. They were so accurate. I mean, there's an element of luck, particularly with the second one. I know people will always say, why didn't you choose that as your goal for the team that scored the best goal against Chelsea? It's got every right to be up there. But I think for me, just the fact that it was a bit of a hit and hope, and he would say different, I'm sure, but it did feel like a bit of a hit and hope from the angle he was at, but not taking away anything from the strike. Obviously, it was fantastic. So I think that's probably The worst I felt, particularly against Chelsea and Newcastle at home, because I just wasn't confident that we would beat Bayern Munich in the final, particularly as the final was going to be in Munich as well. So that's my worst Newcastle game. And on to my best Chelsea versus Newcastle game at home. This one, I'm going back to 2004, the years of Jose Mourinho, those early days when everything was just fantastic. It didn't matter what we did, we tended to win. And, didn't it feel good? I'm choosing this game because it was a real team performance. It was a very cold day. It was December. I was at the game and I felt as though the goals would never come. We hadn't scored. It was 0-0. And we got to about the hour mark from my memory serves me correct. And nothing had happened. And we know we played quite well to this point, but we just couldn't put the ball in the net, basically. And Drogba was getting a lot of stick at the time. He was a new signing. He'd scored a couple of goals, but he hadn't been the player that I think a lot of us thought he could be. He hadn't kicked on, and Jose kept building him up in the press, and we're just waiting for that spark. You could see Drogba had something. You could see it. But what he didn't get when he first came to the club was that he play acted a lot. He rolled over on the floor a lot. As he got older, and particularly in Europe, he knew when to feel the contact, and he knew when to get a good foul, buying a foul, as we say. Genuine foul, but making the most of the situation. And Didier Drogba had a very good knack for this, as his time progressed at Chelsea. This is something I hope Nicholas Jackson can do as he, forges on in his career for Chelsea, because that's a very big part of the game. If you can draw the foul instead of kind of complaining all the time and getting yourself a yellow card, that's something that he could learn from. But Drogba was getting a lot of stick at the time, and he was rolling around on the floor a lot, and his theatricals weren't really endearing himself to the Chelsea fans. But this was a game where he really sort of, say, made his name, but certainly it helped. And he was a big, blustering centre forward, as we know, with an accurate shot and great header of the ball, pace to burn. He had everything, Drogba, to be fair. And I just remember him really sort of putting his mark all over this game with a fantastic goal. Obviously, as the game progressed and we got the first one, you just knew the goals were going to start rolling after that. And Newcastle, who defended very well to this point, started to capitulate. And none more so as when we were 3-0 up and there was maybe a couple of minutes to go. I think that's about right. And we got a penalty. And Jose, in true Jose style, we didn't notice at the time what sort of manager he was, but off came, I can't even remember now who the substitution was, but Matthias Kezman came on because he hadn't really scored. He either hadn't scored yet or he maybe got one goal, but something makes me think he hadn't scored for the club, and he'd been desperately trying to score for Chelsea, and it just wasn't happening for him. Jose brings on Kezman. Kezman does a Panenka down the middle of the goal. I mean, it was just beautiful. And he celebrates in the corner, and every single player, every single substitute, maybe even the manager himself, they sprint to the corner flag, and every player jumps on top of him. And Chris and I have been talking about team spirit and a bond between the players and the fans. The fans knew exactly what Jose was doing. In some cases, some managers might find that a little bit disrespectful to kind of bring a player on who hadn't scored yet, almost like rubbing it in at 3-0. But Jose wanted him to score. He wanted him to get off and running. And Kezman didn't really kick on for Chelsea. I always thought he was a good player. There was a very good player in him, but he just never quite got the goals. And we moved him on maybe a year or two after that. But what Jose did was build that chemistry, and every single player would have loved him to score that goal. And when we speak about Maresca getting the players to go over to the fans at home and away, win, lose or draw, that is what is so important. And I think people have lost sight of that slightly. And I hope people have listened to the end of the podcast, because that's a message I really wanted to get across today, because I think it's a very, very important thing that Chelsea continue to build this relationship with the fans, because the performances will only get better when we can see them trying their hardest, and we'll get behind the team even more. So that's my best game. It was a 4-0 home win against Newcastle in 2004, a very cold day, 0-0 till the 60th minute, and we went on to win 4-0 and win the league that year as well. So fantastic day, fantastic season, and fantastic memories. Cheers, guys.
Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be alright.